So far throughout the course, we've seen a lot of different types of numbers in our number system, which is rather complicated. We have a lot of different categories of numbers, and again, we've seen a lot of them throughout our math so far. So I just kind of want to go through some of those different types of numbers that we've seen and that you have heard of before. So all of the numbers that we have heard before are in the category of real numbers. And really, like, these real numbers just have some kind of real applicable meaning. And underneath real numbers are kind of divided into two categories. There are rational numbers, which are numbers that can be written as a fraction. Like 1/2 or -3/1, any number that can be written as a fraction. And then there are irrational numbers, that cannot be written as a fraction. Like the square root of 3, for example. The square root of 3 cannot be written as a fraction. And underneath rational numbers, our numbers kind of keep branching into different categories. So underneath rational numbers, we have the categories of integers, which integers can be whole numbers that are positive, negative, and 0. So the number 0 is considered part of the set of integers. And underneath integers, we have whole numbers. And the category of whole numbers is just positive numbers and 0. And then our last category is our natural numbers, which are also sometimes called counting numbers. And I guess the easiest way to think of the counting numbers or the natural numbers is if you ask a little kid to count to 10, what number do they normally start at? They start with 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So our natural numbers or counting numbers are just our positive whole numbers. Okay, so I'm going to go back and circle the sets of numbers so forth. So there's real numbers. Our branch off of that was rational numbers, and then irrational numbers were on the same level of our tree, and then integers below, whole numbers, and then our natural counting numbers. Now all of these types of numbers fall under a big umbrella term. So I'm going to draw my umbrella here. And this umbrella term is complex numbers, which is what we are learning about in section 4.8. Okay, and again, on the same level of real numbers, we see this category, imaginary numbers, which is something that I've hinted at a couple times so far this chapter, but here we go. We're actually going to see what these imaginary numbers are. Okay, so first of all, an imaginary number. The imaginary number I, by definition, is the square root of -1. So whenever we see the square root of a negative number, instead of, like if we're solving an equation, instead of just saying, hey, it's no solution, we have a square root of a negative number, we can write our answer another way using this imaginary number, the square root of -1. Okay, now kind of going off of that, imagine if I have this I equals -1. If you think of this as an equation, if you square both sides, okay, the square root of -1 squared is -1. And then you'd have I squared over here because you square both sides. So going along with this, I is the square root of -1. I squared is -1 by definition. Okay? Complex numbers are an umbrella term. It includes real numbers, imaginary numbers, and combinations of our real and imaginary numbers. So complex numbers are written in the form A plus BI. So the real part comes first. If you have a real and an imaginary together, the real part comes first and then our imaginary. So for example, 3i would be considered a complex number. So would 2 plus 4i, and so on. All right. So this is kind of our overarching just idea of complex numbers and how these sets of numbers are related to each other. We know real numbers. This is what we've worked with basically our whole lives so far. Now we're seeing this idea of imaginary numbers, but they really all fall under this big giant umbrella of complex numbers.